power station and the dams, they were a part of Madison Paper for many years, and we sold them out when we closed down in 2016.
May 28th, the last rolls of Super Calendar paper were produced here in 2016. That ended a 4-decade-old chapter in Madison's history where high-quality Super Calendar paper was made by 215 of the most high-quality workers in our area.
I had great-grandparents that worked here, and a grandfather, and my father worked here for years too, so it goes back probably 100 years now. This is where the machines were, paper machine 1, paper machine 2. I remember coming down here in the 60s on a school trip when this was running. So you can bet thousands of people walked these floors over 100 years.
It seemed like there was a new paper mill shutting down every day, and I was driving to work at the University of Maine. I was teaching at Maine Maritime and driving past some of these mills, and they announced they were shutting down, and within a few months, those mills were leveled. 215
lost jobs, $3.5 million in property taxes that were gone virtually overnight. Each of those numbers represents people that lost their jobs here. They had to retire or relocate or relearn another trade. Local property owners who had to now shoulder a 30% increase in their property taxes.
This is the beginning of the old mill. You can see where there were windows at one time or doorways. This area is not lit. So all you see is what I show you by flashlight. Can you see all right? It gets real quiet over on this side.
It doesn't take very long once a mill closes, for the sort of vultures to circle and start collapsing and leaving the town with really a brownfield site that is really hard to recover from. I grew up in Pittsburgh when all the steel mills were closing. It took close to 40 years for Pittsburgh to come out of that. It was pretty shocking. You hear about industries declining, but when you start and see like hundreds of millions of dollars of investment just leveled to the ground, poor state like Maine, are we gonna get that kind of investment ever again? It was built by Chinbro for Milikowski, a Super Calendar paper manufacturer in the early 1980s, for $300 million in 1980s dollars. That's close to $1 billion in today's dollars. You just look at the support infrastructure, these 36-inch I-beams, that's more than anyone would ever possibly want to do. The support infrastructure for the floor, it's bomb-proof. You could do anything in this building.
As soon as I could count money, I was working many hours, weekends, nights after school, changing tires, changing oil, pumping gas, and I did that right up until I joined the military. You see these blocks right here?
Yeah.
That's old granite that they put together, and we'll see that in the mill. The pictures I showed you showed these being laid, these blocks, when they built the mill. It's like hitting megabucks. Getting hired here in Madison is like hitting megabucks for 40, 50,000 a year for 40 years. I was kind of wondering how many people lost their lives in here, because I know a lot did. Everything you can imagine, accidents I know of 4 or 5 that died in here. And I read in the newspaper the other day, a guy from town passed, and he was 90 years old. And it said in his obituary that his father died down here in this mill. I started here in the fall of 1981, and I was here until the mill closed in the spring of 2016, so it was 34 and a half years. I'd heard stories that this place was haunted and people wouldn't come down in certain parts of it, but until I'm pushed, spoken to, or actually see something, I don't worry about it too much. My favorite part of the mill. The whole mill is my favorite part, inside and out. It's everything. It's everything.
Two very interesting people, characters really, walked into my office. A sharply dressed architect and a chemistry professor. It sounds like a joke. These guys walk into my office. But they had their idea about wood fiber-based insulation. And they had a passion and a story that could not be denied.
There's $10 to $20 million of electrical distribution equipment in the facility when we bought it. And we bought the facility for $1.9 million. So say we were doing 10-hour shifts or something like that.
Are we looking at this for 24/7 operations?
Ultimately 24/7, yeah.
I was fascinated by Josh's background and experience. Plus, I liked him a tremendous amount. And I was like, let's collaborate. You're a chemist. I'm an architect. There's this, great opportunity for collaboration. And he's like, I'm not so sure.
Matt, showed an interest in me and my training as a chemist. He seemed convinced that what an architecture and design and construction firm really needed was like a PhD materials chemist, which, doesn't everybody.
This is ER6. Like I say, we got 7 of them. And all the equipment we're using, we could just put in one.
Back in 2008, I formed a design build company called Geologic, and our goal was to build the highest performing buildings we could. And at that time, for us, we defined that as passive house construction. We were using about 3 times as much insulation as we would on a standard built building to achieve that high performance. Insulation's reputation precedes it as being itchy and scratchy and uncomfortable to use. When we're talking about the foam, fiberglass, mineral wool, they were totally non-renewable and non-recyclable.
This is where the old paper machine started, right to the length to the other side. This was the wet end.
I liked everything about what he was doing, except, in order to achieve that energy savings, you need a lot of insulation, and the insulation choices he was using just seemed like, environmentally you're replacing one disaster with another.
That's our boiler right there. It's going to run the place. 40,000 pounds.
Then you're going to have a period, where we're selling $25 million a year of product, right? And then ultimately we're going to be, we hope, in a period where we're selling $100 million a year of product.
I always think that Europe is about 20 years in advance in terms of their sustainable technology. And so we looked at what products were available there, and we came across insulation that was made from wood or wood fiber insulation.
This was the old maintenance shop. It's going to be more than likely the new maintenance shop. We have many rooms.
It'd been on the market for 20, 25 years. It was growing incredibly fast in the European market, and it had everything that we really were looking for in terms of the sustainability. It was renewable, recyclable, non-toxic. When you cut it, the byproduct is sawdust.
This is the front of the machine. They are going to be filling this whole hole right here, right in.
We'll look at a lab area. We'll actually look at some wood fiber insulation. We'll try to set some stuff on fire. That's always fun.
He said, what is this material? What are we looking at here? And I explained all the benefits, how it performs, its history. And I also mentioned that, despite having lots of softwood here in the United States, it's not manufactured domestically, and I have no idea why.
From that point on, I just became kind of obsessed with it. We're just steaming the chips under pressure, plate refining them, drying them, mixing them with a bit of adhesive, depending on the process, and then just forming them, pressing them, cutting them, and that's your end product.
Josh, with his background as a material chemist, looked at the material and he said, I can make this material. This isn't a difficult material to make. There must be some barrier here why this isn't manufactured domestically. let's go find out.
Because we both speak German, we just went over there. We just bought a plane ticket literally and just knocked on doors and said, hey, can we come and ask you about this product? And went to manufacturers. And I think because they were just like, who are these guys? And I think we're pretty relatively unintimidating. They were just like, opened their financial books to us and said, have a look. We don't really know why this product is not manufactured in North America. We took that, transposed that model onto North America, and what you take advantage of is energy costs that are about half and wood costs that are about a third of what they're paying in Europe. And that takes a product that is, say a 10, 15% premium in Europe compared to mineral wool fiberglass foam, and it becomes a cost competitive product here.
There's no flame retardant in this board right here.
Really? The paraffin won't ignite?
Without flame retardant, this has a Class B flame spread, so it'll extinguish that flame when I remove the flame from it.
The most important pitch Matt and I have ever made was to Marty. They have saved us $20+ million. He brought Joe Clark, who's the head of mechanical maintenance here for 30 years, Rick Vino, who's the head of project management for over 25 years, and they became our engineering team.
Maybe somebody did a really poor flashing job around the window. Saturates a corner, everybody thinks, well, it's gonna blow apart. Well, it won't, because of capillary action, that moisture will get spread throughout the entire surface. It'll exit that product when the conditions allow.
One of the manufacturers that was particularly fond of what we were doing in Europe gave us first right of refusal on purchasing their only insulation manufacturing mill that contained a $40 million Diefenbacher line that was only 9 years old. We bought that for 2.5 million euros. I say bought that because we didn't have 2.5 million euros. We shook on it, and then we went back home and we decided to okay, how do we do this? Hi, thank you for joining us today.
Hello, Governor Mills. Thank you so much for coming.
I know you meet a million people. Josh Henry.
Matt O'Malia. I just want to say thank you because, we had the chance to talk before you started your administration, and where we've come in the last 3 years as with your support has been absolutely amazing.
I'm so glad.
More often than not, you have more bad days than you have good days in terms of, not being successful raising money or something goes wrong. I'm obsessive enough that I'd carry that with me if I didn't have to go to daycare at the end of the day and pick up my daughters and them be excited to see me.
What are they doing?
What are they doing? Well, Daddy's gonna talk. Everyone's here to celebrate the building of this facility where Daddy works. You think it's scary here? Well, I don't blame you. People seem to love to hear the stories and they want to emulate it, a lot of young people, but it's really hard on your family and your relationships. Very simply, without Ralph Tranton, Joe Clark, Rick Vino, and Marty Troy, our company wouldn't exist. Ralph Tranton, he worked with Marty and Rick and Joe at the mill.
All this pipe has to go except for the roof drains and the floor drains. Everything else will be cut out.
During the pandemic, we were so short on funds, and he started directing the scrapping operation of the mill, taking down hanging pipe and hanging wire and yielding us about $750,000 in scrapping fees. And without him, I'm pretty convinced we wouldn't have made it through the pandemic.
The real story is this: an architect and a chemist in the state of Maine who lived and believed in Maine saw an opportunity.
I can't tell you the number of times I got on a phone call with Josh only to hear these two little girls in the background squealing as he was either dropping them off or picking them up from childcare. I returned a call to Matt O'Malia this past summer, and all I hear in the background is whistles and cheering because he's at his kid's soccer game. These are the type of people that are trying to make an entrepreneurial dream come true, but they're also balancing family life at the same time. These are real people, these are our people, these are Madison people, and we are glad to have them here.
We've been married for almost 20 years. She knows me better than I know myself and knew that what I was doing was not a good fit for me. And I think when she saw this, she was like, well, life is pretty short, you need to do this.
4% PMDI, 1% paraffin wax throughout the entire fiber stream.
More spring in this.
You're adding that much. I was born in Caribou, Maine, raised in Aroostook County. Really started in the lumber and building material industry at the age of 16.
We're talking about high carbon footprint materials versus a material which is actually carbon storing. Carbon storing in the sense that trees sequester carbon through photosynthesis.
Our projections are that it'll arrive to the job site carbon negative or storing carbon.
I was born in Belgrade, Maine, Central Maine native, at the home that my parents currently live in.
Flash tube dryers are coming, high efficiency cyclones are coming, but we have to build all that steel scaffolding. We have to build the steel scaffolding for all of this. My father worked at a veneer mill in northern Maine for 40 years, and we've watched paper mills close and reopen, close permanently.
We lost 6 paper mills in 2016. The reality in Maine is they create a lot of quality jobs, not only for the manufacturing side, but trucking and lumber, all the way through the economy. That was a $1.6 billion body blow to state's economy in 2016 when we lost those, and that happens going forward.
Some people see the cube first, and maybe that brings to mind more of the built environment side of our story. And some people see the tree first, and of course that's the wood product side of our story.
That facility is going to cost $135 million. Wow. That's what it's taking to do that. Typically, that should be $200 million.
Wow. Their byproduct, when you take a round log and turn it into little square bits, is all the little leftover wood that gets chipped up. That's the product that we use to make our wood fiber insulation. The opportunity here is that it's a recycling waste stream.
You're getting there. You're getting there.
Oh yeah, and I mean we're looking at our second and third production facilities across the country right now. We've got that expansion team devoted on that. And those are people who helped us with this, and Matt and I are part of that team too. So.
The investment that you are witnessing on this site today is something that hasn't happened in nearly 45 years.
My classmates built their lives around these good-paying jobs. They lost a lot more than a paycheck when our paper mills began to close 8, 10, 15 years ago. As one former mill worker in Madison put it, losing the mill was losing a job, but it was also losing the status of the job. It's a job people looked up to.
We were waiting for the right fit. And then, as the joke goes, I'm sitting in my office in 2018, and a chemistry professor and an architect walk in.
What I've learned from Tim today is that if a professor and an architect come into your office, just say yes. And it will turn out just fine.
We're doing this really difficult, important thing, but we're having fun. Now, the last bit with the financing in the end was stressful, like, to be perfectly honest, but it's been really, really fun and extremely rewarding. And it's because Josh's personality, it's because our synergy, the way we work, I think is the reason why that is.
Timber HP represents the pride not only of work, but of making something that brings value to your community. Pride for the town of Madison and every community from which someone who works here comes. And it represents hope for the future for so many towns like yours in Somerset County, but I want you to know this, across the entire great state of Maine.
You've got
state government, local government, your incredible leadership on both sides of the aisle in the federal government who are stepping up to be your partners, and that's the way we get the job done.
We have an opportunity to deliver scalable insulation solutions that not only slow the pace of climate change, but actually start to reverse it.
Don't you love that this is the first plant of its kind in all of the United States? In fact, in all of North America.
I will end my remarks with a quote from the author Jack London that is stenciled on the wall of my office. Thank you, Amy. When at my wit's end and I'm too caught up in me, it reminds me of my wife. And my children, our team members, all the people I care about, and what a fleeting chance we have to make things better for them. I would rather be ashes than dust. I would rather that my spark burn out in a brilliant blaze than it be stifled by dry rot. I would rather be a superb meteor than a sleepy permanent planet. The proper function of man is to live, not to exist. I shall not waste my days in trying to prolong them. I shall use my time.